YouTube and Facebook friends, welcome back once again. If you're joining us once again, if this is your first time, welcome to the live stream of the Self-Employed Life podcast. We love doing this because it gives you an opportunity to kind of get the raw, unedited version of our conversations, and you get the content weeks before it comes out as a podcast. Although today's episode is going to broadcast on May 11th, not too far out, and you're going to want to catch both this and the podcast. So let's get into it. We may be given life, but life itself is not a given. It is to be earned. In this episode, we get to hear from Dr. Marshall Goldsmith about living a deliberate life, avoiding regret, and achieving an earned life. Dr. Goldsmith is a member of the Thinkers 50 Hall of Fame. He's the only two-time Thinkers 50 #1 leadership thinker in the world. He has been ranked as the world's #1 executive coach and top 10 business thinker for 8 years. Marshall was chosen as the inaugural winner of the Lifetime Award for Leadership by the Harvard Institute of Coaching. He's a New York Times #1 bestselling author, has written or edited 43 books, which have sold over 2.5 million copies, and is the only living author with 2 books on Amazon's list of the 100 best leadership and success books ever written. His new book is The Earned Life: Lose Regret, Choose Fulfillment. Marshall, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Man, that is a portfolio of accomplishments if there ever was one. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Now, I, of course, have had the good fortune of reading your book, and it's fantastic. I absolutely loved it. So thank you for writing it. It just comes along at such a perfect point in my own life, as well as I know will for many others. So it's just a wonderful book. But for those who haven't had the good fortune to read your book yet, let's start off by having you define an earned life.
Well, an earned life occurs when the efforts that we make in life, the earned life is not using your cell phone. Our earned life occurs when our risks, our efforts, and our commitments in each moment are aligned with a higher purpose. So as we go through life, our risks, our commitments, our efforts are aligned with a higher purpose, regardless of result. And that's probably one of the more interesting and intriguing parts of the definition, regardless of the results. So the earned life is not, I have so much money or I won a contest. The earned life is kind of something we're doing over and over and over again as we go through life.
In fact, to that point, this really stuck out to me, that you say that to achieve an earned life, you have to attach earning moments to something greater than ambition. And this is a very ambitious crowd here for this audience, which is absolutely true, right? Because so much of what we grasp for in life, our happiness, achievements, all that's pretty fleeting. What's interesting, though, is you also mentioned that even meaning and purpose, what many of us think of as being more permanent, can also slip through our fingers.
Right.
So what meaning should we attach to our earning moments?
Well, to me, I look at 3 variables, and the 3 A's, I call them. Our first is our aspiration. Our aspiration is our higher purpose, and it doesn't have a finish line. It's who we are constantly becoming at this moment. Our ambition you talk about, and I totally agree with you and your listeners, is what we achieve. And I'm going to come back to that one. And that does have a finite finish line. And then our actions are our day-to-day activities. What am I doing now? So we go from now, finite time, infinite time. And if we look at the earned life, assume you have health, and assume you have enough money, a middle-class income, and assume you have good relationships with with people you love. What matters? There's only 3 things that matter in life. 1, you have a purpose, some sense of higher aspiration. 2, your achievements are connected to this purpose. And then 3, you love what you do. And if the answer is yes, 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 you just won the game of life. That's about all there is. The thing is, though, it's constantly restarting. You see, in the West, we have the great myth. There's a book you may have read, many types of books that have the same ending, and they lived happily ever after. You see, that's called a fairy tale. That's not the real world. And the great Western ethos is, I will be happy when. I will find meaning when. It will all be okay when I get the money, the status, the BMW, the condominium, or most noticeably, some achievement. It will all be better when. And a key point to the book is never make your self-worth as a human being based on results. Never assume happiness comes with results, because it's a fool's game for two reasons. One is you don't control the outcomes of most of what you do in life. You don't control the outcomes. And two, let's say you do achieve something. How long does this bring you happiness and satisfaction anyway? A week? 2 weeks? And if you look at it, we think once I achieve this, it's going to be okay. Well, look at what happens to people who win the Super Bowl.
Right.
NFL stars, disaster, by the way, just complete divorced, bankrupt, depressed. Michael Phelps, 25 gold medal, thinks of killing himself. It's the great Western mindset is, well, captured in the great Western art form. You may have seen this art form before. Are you ready? It sounds like this. There is a person. Oh, they're sad. Oh, they spend money. Ooh, they buy a product and they become happy. This is called a commercial. Now, have you ever seen one of those?
Yeah, you think?
How many times?
Yeah. I think that there's the lesson of stopping and starting is a really important one. It's subtle in the book, but a super important one, and it's very powerful at the end. But just a powerful message to get out in the world that an earned life is actually a series of stops and starts, and constantly restarting, and that's really important. But let's talk about regret for a moment, because that's a big one. It's to me, regret is fascinating because there's two ways of looking at it. There's a way in which we think we want to live to avoid regret in the future, but we're also always looking backwards in our lives. So some level of regret in hindsight. So at the end of the day, regret or living an earned life without regret is really about being present in the present moment. How does regret play into as a role of the earned life? And then specifically, you talk about the every breath paradigm about being present. So kind of wrap all that up for us.
Well, I'm not a religious, but I'm a philosophical Buddhist.
You and I share that, by the way. I've spent many years studying Buddhism, and
I've read more about Buddhism than I do the stuff I have a PhD in. Yeah. So if you look at basic, and there are many schools of Buddhist thought, but one school of Buddhist thought is every time I take a deep breath, it's a new me. And life, some people said, is Buddhism about reincarnation? To me, Buddhism is about nothing but reincarnation. It's constant reincarnation. Right. Every time I take a breath, it's a new me, new me, new me. Now, how does this deal with the concept of regret? I do a lot of programs where I try to teach people to forgive themselves. And one thing I say is just take a deep breath and imagine that you are a new you. Every time you take a breath, think, new me, new me. And imagine everything done before this second in time was done by an infinite set of people called the previous me's. Well, think of all those previous versions of you. Now, think of all the gifts they've given the you that's listening to me right now. Think about how hard they tried, and think about the nice things they've done. If anybody did that many good things, what should you say to those people? Yeah. And invariably, people say, thank you. Now, did they make a little mistake or two, some of those people? Hey, let it go. Yeah. Let it go and forgive yourself. I mean, I've interviewed thousands of parents around the world and asked this question. No matter what country I'm in, the answer is the same. When my child grows up, I want my child to be one word more than every other word. What's the word? Happy. You want your kid to be happy? You want your parents to be happy? You want the people who love you to be happy? You go first.
Yeah.
You go first.
And I love how you're tying forgiveness into that. I love how, and I hadn't thought about that as far as, every breath I take is a new me. There is an inherent forgiveness in that as well, because you can express gratitude and forgiveness to the previous you, which was just a moment ago. But that's such a key lesson, I think, about regret, is that at the end of the day, it's the present moment. It's what's going on it's your ability to be present, and not regret that moment. Like, just have, be in that moment and do it without regret. Beautiful lesson in it.
Well, one of the stories I like in the book is, and it came from a friend of mine, he's driving a car with his wife. and they've had a really beautiful weekend with their adult children and very positive, and they're happy. And then she starts in on, well, it's too bad you didn't do this 10 years ago and that. And he said, look, I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. Now, that person made some mistakes. Okay. I am not that person. I'm a different person. I've tried to be a better person. And, she said, you are. You're right.
Yeah. That was a super powerful story. Beautifully said. Now, I tell you, one of the things you say something in the book that I think it's an incredibly powerful and important statement, and it's actually a quote from the book. You say that vicarious living is the most alarming, soul-leeching development you've observed in the last 20 years. That is, Marshall, that's a huge statement.
Hmm.
So, and I can't disagree with you on it, but explain what you're speaking about with by vicarious living and what concerns you about it.
Well, 20 years ago, I made a prediction. Now, this is one I wish I had been wrong.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I was not wrong. I said 20 years ago in a book called Community of the Future that within 20 years will be something like instant download, TV quality, audio visual transmission over something like the internet. Well, I said when that happens, media addiction will far exceed drug addiction and alcohol addiction combined as a social problem.
Wow.
We are there.
Mhm.
Media addiction is a disaster in our society. The average kid that's flunking out of school 55 hours a week on non-academic media. And it's mostly vicarious living. They're watching a movie. They're watching and I talked about they're playing a video game. My son said, you think playing video games is bad? You don't get it. There's this guy called PewDiePie.
Yeah.
People spend billions of hours watching some sarcastic other guy play a
Mhm.
video game. This
Yeah.
is like double vicarious living.
Yeah.
You're not just like he's vicariously living a video game and you're watching him. Well, one of the points in the book is you want to have a great life, live your own life. Live your own life. Don't live.
Is it avoidance? Like what, it's so that vicarious living is so contradictory to an earned life. And
Right.
what is it? Is it avoidance or is it the habits that get formed from addiction?
It's a drug. You're
Yeah.
watching the Kardashians, right?
Yeah. No, I
Well,
don't, but okay, I
no,
get
but
your
let's
point.
assume, let's assume
I
someone's
assure you I
watching
don't, but I get the
someone's
point.
watching the Kardashians,
Right.
right? Well, they don't live this Kardashian-like life,
Mm,
but vicariously, their brains start experiencing the world as if they were Kardashians.
yeah.
The guy that goes to the football game, his brain experiences the touchdown in a very similar way to the guy that scores the touchdown. The only problem is he's not the person that scores the touchdown.
Yeah.
He's living through the person that scored the touchdown. You're not one of the Kardashians. You're living through the Kardashians. And to the degree we're not living our own lives, you're just living someone else's life who, by the way, doesn't care about you.
You. Mhm.
They don't care about you. And let me tell you an interesting twist, though, I put on the vicarious living. When we live in the past, we are, in essence, vicariously living.
How so?
The football player who's still talking about Super Bowl
Mm,
III, that football player did not win. That person talking to you did not win Super Bowl III.
yeah.
He is talking about some character from the past, some kid in the past who won Super Bowl III. That's not him.
Yeah.
See, that's one reason, like National Football League, such disasters. My good friend Curtis Martin is in the book. Curtis, the National Football League Hall of Fame, does a lot to help ex-football players. And one of the things he tries to do, you got to find meaning now.
Mhm.
You can't sit there and live who you were.
A pinnacle moment. It's you can almost say that explains why so many of us had the experience of going back to high school reunions, and you can see the people that just they peaked in high school, right? That was their moment of popularity, and they're cool. And then because honestly, when I went back to my high school reunions, I was the nerd. I was the kid nobody even knew was in the school.
Right,
But I went back and actually was a high achiever
right,
compared to those popular kids, and it's because they hold on to that pinnacle moment. So when we hold on to pinnacle moments in our lives, we're, to your point, we're also living a vicarious life. So
right.
we're living in our own earlier version. Really powerful. So let's talk about earning an earned life. And you
Mhm.
offer the earned life checklist. Let's kind of go through these 6 things that we should consider. And I love the use of words of consider here, right? These are the six things we
Yeah,
should consider. The first is motivation. And what you describe in the book is one of the more misunderstood and misused words when it comes to achievement: motivation. Tell
right.
us what we should be considering there.
Well, when we think of motivation, you've got the self-employed podcast. People think, "Oh, I'm motivated to make money." Well, that doesn't mean anything. Are you motivated to do the work required to make the money? Being motivated to make the money doesn't matter. You've got to be motivated to do what it takes to get the money, what it takes to get the success. So the first one is motivated. And then other variables are, do you have the ability to do it? Do you understand what to do? Do you understand how to do it? Do you believe you can do it? Do you have a sense of self-confidence? Is there support that's needed? Are you getting the support that you're needing to get this done? And then finally, is there a market for it? I live in Nashville, right? And, I'm one of the great myths is, if you love your work, the money will follow. Maybe not. Let's go to Hollywood. How many waitresses in Hollywood love being stars? Well, how many of them are making money? None. Same thing as here in Nashville. No, you got to have a market. If there's no market, it doesn't really matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you have to look at this earnings checklist and say, all right, if I want to get someplace, what does it take me to get there? And do I have the motivation? Do I have the ability? Do I have the understanding? Do I have the confidence, the support? And is there a market for it? And if there isn't, there isn't.
100%. Let's talk about support a little bit, because there's 2 things that stood out to me in the book. One was that that high achievers look at support as their next level, their higher gear. I remember the word gear standing out. You also present as being so important. At the end of the book, you mentioned support being so important that if you could leave us as a reader with one piece of advice, again, also a big statement, if you could leave us with one piece of advice to increase our probability of
Right.
creating an earned life, is to ask for help. So talk about that asking for help part, because it's a struggle. And you know what, Marshall, in all transparency, and I bet you know this too, it seems to be a bigger struggle for men than women when it comes to asking for help.
Yes, you're right. I don't have research to prove it, but I think you're right. Let's talk about asking. Now, here's one thing I'm proud of. Now, if you saw I don't know if you saw the endorsements for the book, but these are the big league.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about president of the World Bank, CEO of Pfizer, CEO of the Year in the United States, another CEO of the Year in the United States, winner of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, Nobel Peace Prize. This is
Yeah.
these are serious people that endorse the book. Now, I'm proud of that. I'm so proud of that. Why am I so proud? 30 years ago, no CEO would admit to having a coach.
Yeah, you told a great story about IBM. And that was intriguing to me. Also, my father was one of the first. You worked with IBM in Armonk. My father was one of the first 90 employees at IBM East Fishkill.
This was so
So I know
hilarious.
the culture. I know the
Oh, this
culture.
was
Yeah.
so hilarious. All right, now you got to realize I'm a kid, and I'm 28, 29 years old, and IBM is the god company of the world at that time. I mean, there was
70s,
IBM and
right?
everybody else. IBM was it. And the fact I worked there at all made me the second coming of God, just because I got to work there. So IBM is a hilarious story. So IBM, they get this survey and it says the managers are not doing a good job of coaching. Oh, so they said, well, we'll fix that. So they spend like $1 billion on training programs, right? And they do a survey, nothing gets better. Nothing. So they hire me to say, what's going on here? Why isn't this working? So I interview the employee. Does your manager do a good job of coaching? No. I interview the manager. Does your employee ever ask for coaching? No. I interview the employee. Do you ever ask for coaching? No. You can't make this up.
Yeah.
I look at the performance appraisal system, and the definition of a top performer is performs effectively with no need for coaching.
Yeah. It's crazy. I know. Literally saying that the culture was they perform well if they don't ask for help.
Well, and so the manager would say, how about coaching? What's the employee say? No, Mr. Manager, I perform effectively with no need for coaching. And yet I'm 28. You know what I said? this is the most admired company in the world, and they're doing stuff this insane.
Yeah.
Anybody can do my job. What a life.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Asking for help. I mean, yeah, it's a struggle. People have a hard time asking for the help, but it is the higher gear. I love the terminology of that is asking for help being the higher gear.
Let me give you another funny story about that. I would teach my classes. I say, do you believe customer satisfaction is important? Oh, yes, yes. Should we ask our customers how we can do better? Yes, yes. Should we listen to our good customers? Yes, yes, yes. Do you have a husband, wife, or partner at home? Yes. How much time do you spend asking that person, how can I be a better partner? Silence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I have people take out their cell phones. Everybody listening, do this. Get out your cell phone, send a note to your partner with no explanation. Just ask one question. What can I do to be a better partner in our relationship? Send the text message. It's hilarious. I've done this with thousands of people.
I have a feeling I get back. Are you okay?
That's very common.
Right.
Are you okay? Are
Yeah.
you sick? Are you drunk?
Exactly.
Who are you sleeping with? Who are you sleeping
Exactly.
with? Who's stolen my husband's cell phone? This is your wife. Who is this intended for? I get just hilarious. On a serious note, though, 2 people said it saved their marriages.
Wow.
Twice. And they were men. They sent a note back, and their wife sent a note back, said, yeah, there is something you can do. Here's what it is. And in both cases, they went home and it saved their marriage.
It's a beautiful thing, and it makes perfect sense. So let's talk about your life plan review. LPR, as it's lovingly referred to, is in the book, which is a series of questions, which I'll kind of go through them real quick, and then we can kind of go back and go through them, because I love the idea of this. So a life plan review, asking yourself, did I do my best to set clear goals, make progress towards my goals, find meaning, be happy, maintain and build positive relationships, and be fully engaged. So why that process? How has that worked for you? And how do you personally use a life plan review?
This is an evolution. So I'll just give you a little of the evolution of the process. First, part of the idea came from my friend Alan Mulally. Now, in theory, I'm Alan Mulally's coach, right? In practice, I don't know if you know who he was, but he went to Ford. The stock was $1.01. He left, it was $18.40. It went up 1,837%. He was ranked number 3 greatest leader in the world behind the Pope and Angela Merkel. Wow. CEO of the year in the United States, a 97% approval rating, by the way, from every employee in the company, a union company. CEO in a union company, 97% approval. They love this guy. And he's just a he's a great friend. We're working on a book together now. So Alan really inspired me. He does something called the Business Plan Review Project. And the Business Plan Review is every week people get up and say, here's my key priorities, red, yellow, green. And they have to get up and say it. Okay, he goes to Ford. They're losing $17 billion with a B, $billion, going bankrupt. The first meeting, he has his top 16 people. He says, okay, give me your top 5 priorities. Red, not on plan and don't know how to get there. Yellow, not on plan, have a strategy. And green, I'm on plan. So the first meeting, again, you can't make this up, 16 times 5, 80 priorities, all green. Everything is green. So Alan says, well, let's see. We're losing $17 billion and everyone is on
coming
plan.
Up roses.
Everyone's right on plan. He said, I think we must have a bad plan.
Yeah.
It's a bad plan. We're losing. If we're on plan, it's not a good plan. It's a bad plan. And then he finally gets people to start opening up and be accountable and change their lives. I take this process and apply it to living. Now, the 6 questions to me are critically important in life. 1, every day, do you have clear goals? I mean, how do you know how well you did if there is no at what? 2, did you make progress toward achieving the goals? I'm going to spend some time on one of them. 3, did you do your best to find meaning? Now, every question begins with, did you do your best to? I learned that from my daughter, Kelly. Kelly knows a lot about research. I'm very proud of her. She's got a PhD from Yale. She's a full professor here at Vanderbilt, which is why I live in Nashville now. And so she and I were going through this, and she said, challenge people with the question, did I do my best to? Here's why. They can't blame someone else. It doesn't even say they succeeded. Did you even try?
Did you do your best?
Did you try? Question number 4, did you do your best to be happy? And I want to spend time on this one. I talk about this in my book, Triggers. 3 medical doctors that I've coached, 3 of the smartest people I ever met in my life. One of them is Dr. Jim Kim, Dr. Jim Kim, simultaneous MD and PhD with honors from Harvard in anthropology in 5 years. To put this in context, a normal human being gets a PhD in anthropology in Harvard in 8 years. Oh, he got one in 5 years and got an MD at the same time. He went on to be president of Dartmouth and then head of the World Bank. Dr. Ross Shaw, head of the United States Agency of International Development, reported to Hillary Clinton at age 37. Now he's head of the Rockefeller Foundation. And then John Noseworthy, CEO of Mayo Clinic. So when the brains were passed out, none of these guys were at the back of the line. All three of them individually, and of course I can use their names, it's in the book. Individually, I asked this question: on the average day, did I do my best to be happy today? What would your score be? They all had the same answer. It never dawned on me to try to be happy. I was too busy achieving things.
Wow.
Now I
It's a
said,
shame, right?
I said, you're all medical. They're medical doctors. I said, you're a medical doctor. Now, in medical school, did they cover death? Did they bring that topic up there, death, that you're going to die? They said, yeah, they covered that death thing in medical school. I said, do you think this is a silly question or a trivial question? I said, no. It's a very important question. I just forgot to ask.
Right. Did I do my best to be happy?
Let me spend some more time on this one. Another guy, so over COVID, what I did is the LPR, everybody fills it out. I've got these 50 amazing people, and you saw their names, and I can talk about who they are. They were Curtis Martin, National Football League Hall of Fame, Pal Gasol, great basketball star, Telly Leung, Broadway star. We had the head of the Olympic Committee, the CEO of Russell Investments, CEO of Ancestry.com, CEO of Cardinal. I mean, on and on and on. These like, we had playwrights. I mean, it's just ridiculous, diverse, talented people from around the world. Every week, every day, they kept track of these questions, and every week they reported in on their progress.
Wow. And that was my question to you. Like, how? So this is a daily practice, and you personally do this life plan review. Is it so at night at the conclusion of your day? Do you just run?
I do it the next morning for the previous day. Yeah.
For the previous day. Okay. Is there a reason for that? I'm kind of intrigued by that. As somebody who talks about daily habits to my own coaching clients a lot, I'm a morning practice daily habit kind of guy. Other people, one of the things I talk a lot about is the what's going right journal. I do my what's going right journal in the morning. Some people say do it at the end of the day because they like to reflect back on the day. Is there a reason why you find it best to do these in the morning, reflecting on the previous day, or is it just a habit?
It just inspires me to set goals for that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now I've been doing this for about 25 years. This daily question process, and the final ones are: did you do your best to be fully engaged and do your best to build positive relationships? Those are final two. I've been doing this 25 years with a lot of different questions. Okay. This is hard to do. The average human being quits in 2 weeks, and they don't quit because it doesn't work. They quit because it does work. This is humbling. Anybody says this is easy to do, you've never done this. It's humbling to do. It's hard. I have someone call me on the phone every day for almost 25 years just to make sure I do this. Why? Someone asked me, why do you have someone call you on the phone every day? Don't you know the theory about how to change behavior? I wrote the theory about how to change behavior. That's why I have someone call me on the phone. My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I got ranked #1 leadership thinker and coach in the whole world. I have someone call me on the phone every day just to make sure I do what I teach. Why? I am too cowardly to do any of this stuff by myself. I'm too undisciplined to do any of this stuff by myself.
And you're human.
I need help. I need help. And you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
Who
I
would
love that.
here?
I forgot about that from our previous conversation many, many years ago. I remember that really standing out to me, that you have somebody call you every day. For 25 years, you had somebody call you to ask you these questions so that you were asking yourself. Incredible, incredible. So, I want to go on to another quote. And this is a direct quote from the book, really powerful, particularly for our audience of self-employed business owners. You say, to discover your agency to the life you are creating, you have to find one asset in yourself that is essential for success in your new life. First of all, I love the word agency. I think that's a great way of putting it. Tell us a little bit about that essential, one thing in yourself that's essential. What do you mean by finding that one thing that's essential?
Well, I have a whole chapter called The One Trick Genius. And, it's fascinating. For me, my mission is helping successful leaders achieve positive long-term change in behavior. You do a Google search, helping successful leaders in quotes, the first 500 hits, 450 are me. The rest of the entire world is 50. That's my brand. I won that game. Well, I have, I know about something. I have this essential knowledge of something. And then you have to go back to the 6 questions and say, do you have the motivation, ability, whatever, to do that stuff? But then when you can do that, when you can become this expert at something, one essential thing, it's great. Yeah.
And how does one find that? Is it a connection of dots? Is it reflect how?
Well, I mean, obviously, I was brought up in Valley Station, Kentucky, and my high school ranked second from last in Kentucky in academic achievement. Let me put this in context. We had an outhouse the first 4 years I was in school.
Wow.
So I was not brought up at Harvard Prep. No, I was brought up in pretty, downscale environment. So I wasn't brought up to do any of this stuff necessarily. What happened is, so I went to school. I was very fortunate. My mother spent a lot of time trying to teach me and got a PhD from UCLA. And I met a famous man, Dr. Paul Hersey. And he got double booked. He invented situational leadership with Ken Blanchard, probably the highest paid person in our field in the world at that time. I was smart enough to do one thing, know my place. I followed him around. I was serving the drinks. I was carrying bags. I did anything. I just want to sit and listen to him talk. And one day he got double booked. Can you do what I do? I said, I don't know. He said, I need help. I don't know. He said, I'll pay you $1,000 for a day. I was making $15,000 a year. That was 45 years ago. I was a poor kid in Kentucky. $1,000 a day. You know what I said? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I go do a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. They are so upset that I'm there because I'm not him. But then they had 10 speakers and I came in first place of all the speakers. So they called Paul back and said, send this guy again. Paul said, you want to do this again? I said, I think so. My calendar just cleared. You tell me how many times you want to do that. I am there. Yeah. Well, that's how I got into leadership development. Then the coaching thing, there was nothing called coaching at all. There was no field of coaching. So I'm meeting this guy as a CEO, and he says, I got this kid working for us, young, smart, dedicated, hardworking, arrogant jerk. He said it'd be worth a fortune to me if I could turn around the guy's behavior. So I said, fortune. So I remember the other thing. Fortune is good. Yeah, I like that. He said, well, I doubt it. I said, maybe I can help. Then I came up with an idea. I said, I'll work with the guy for a year. If he gets better, pay me. He don't get better, it's all free. What do you say? Sold. Yeah. That's my career in coaching. I get paid for results.
So it's a combination of, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. It's a combination of reflection, but I think a lot of people spend too much time in reflection and trying to find their essential thing. But it's also the act of doing, it's also, it's doing, it's seeing what gets brought up. One could say, it's kind of serendipitous, one thing happens, but in order for serendipitous moments to happen, you have to be in the world. Like something has to, it's a combination of like I said, I'm a pretty reflective guy, and I think our audience are pretty reflective people, but reflective on in and of itself may not reveal your something essential. Get into action and see what also can be learned.
By the way, I have the highest respect for your audience. I can identify with your audience. I've had a guaranteed base salary of 0 for 45 years. So I think I have a really good understanding of what it feels like to live the self-employed life.
So that might be the best definition of being self-employed I've ever heard. Lack of a guaranteed base salary.
Guarantee. Oh, you've got a guaranteed base salary of nada.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's it. And, I in my work, 45 years, I missed 3 weeks of work. My mother died. My father died and had a ruptured appendix. That's it. It's showtime.
Crazy. Yeah, I think I'm sure many of my loyal listeners anyway know that anybody who's read my book knows that I've been self-employed since the age of 14. Yeah. I sold eggs door to door. I've never had a traditional job. I've never received a paycheck. To your point, my base salary has been 0, and that is now my new definition of being self-employed. My guaranteed base income has been 0, to the point where I was actually sharing with a coaching client this morning. I'm 38 years in to this self-employed life. And, I still have my moments where, okay, this is the moment. This is actually the time that's going to put me under. And I'm like, of course it's not, right? But, it's still always there because of that lack of base. It's like, of course this is not the COVID or whatever it is. This is not going to be the thing that puts me under, because I've been through so many other things. So I love that. Marshall, I have to say, for me personally, there aren't many people who model an earned life that I can relate to as well as you do,
Well,
right?
thanks.
Because you're, as an entrepreneur, a coach, an author, there just aren't, there are great leaders, but you're one of the very few, certainly for me personally, that you model what I could imagine my future being. I mean, here you are, you're 73 years old and you're opening the book. I'm not revealing anything secretive. You're 73 years old. You're still doing it all. You're writing books, you're coaching, you're
Right.
like literally embodying the full entrepreneur spirit and I love that. To
Now,
me,
now let's be fair.
yeah.
Let's look at the incredible opportunity I'm giving up to be talking to you right now. You know what I could have been doing? I could have been playing crappy golf with old men at the country club while eating chicken salad sandwiches and discussing gallbladder surgery.
Well, I know that I now know from reading the book that you have a lot of appreciation for golf, but you don't particularly love it. So I,
No,
I don't imagine the big thing you do. But I mean, what I love is that you're like defining a model for impact makers, I think. Those of us that are doing work that we love so much that this whole old definition of retirement means nothing to us. I mean, and I had this conversation with so many people, and it's important to me, not only personally, I just turned 58. People ask me about retirement. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't anticipate that. So I'm kind of curious on at this point in your own life, your earned life, how do you see, your work today? What's ahead for Marshall Goldsmith? I can only imagine.
well, I love what I do, and I'm constantly coming up with new stuff. I've got no shortage of ideas. I think I could have enough ideas for 5 new books right now. So I'm constantly coming up with new books. I'm reimagining everything. And let me describe my big project, which is in the book. It's called 100 Coaches.
Yeah.
And so I went to this program called Design the Life You Love. Now, again, at the time I was like 70, but still, I'm not dead. I have a
Right.
future, and I'd like to design the life I love. So, as part of the program, the woman Aisha Bursell, who's wonderful, says, "Who are your heroes?" My heroes are very kind and generous people who are nice teachers. Peter Drucker, Alan Mulally, Francis Hesselbein, Paul Hersey, Ken Blanchard, people like that were my heroes. She said, "You should be more like your heroes." I decided to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free. And the only price is when they get old, they do the same thing. So I'm put a little selfie video on LinkedIn, a little tiny video. I'm thinking it's very primitive. I'm thinking 100 people would apply for adoption, 100 young people. I'll adopt 15. I'm a nice old man stumbling around, and then they adopt more and life is good. I missed that guess. So far, over 18,000 people applied to be adopted.
Wow.
And I've adopted 370 people. And the program is called 100 Coaches. It's an amazing program. And the rules are there's no money, there's no guilt, there's no expectation. You can ask anyone for help, and they help you if they can. If they can, it's okay. But there's no expectation of payback. The only expectation is you do something nice for someone else.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Marshall, in full transparency, the last time I interviewed you for Creative Warriors, you had invited me to apply for the 100 coaches. It wasn't launched yet. I didn't understand what it was or the objective was, and I didn't do anything with it. And not something I'm proud of. something I wish I handled differently. You could put it in. I'll put it in a bucket of
Well,
regret.
look, you know people in the group, right?
Very much,
Well,
very many of them.
you want to be in the group, just talk to them.
All right, all right, good to
You
know.
know,
Yeah, as I said, I look back and think,
then you could
what
be
was I
my
thinking?
honorary grandson. Because
I
now you see, I adopt people.
I am
and then
clearly
they
too old
adopt
to be your
people.
grandson.
My oldest adopted child is 106.
You're kidding. In the group?
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And that's why I brought this up. I just, again, for us impact makers, I think we need to look at our futures different. I don't see retiring, slowing down. I don't really know what that means. All I know is I will continue as you. I will continue to design the life I love. That's why I moved to Miami 6 years ago. I came here for 3 months, never left, and realized this is where I want to design the next stage of my life. So I love that you're bringing that up. And truly, Marshall, you represent so much in this world. Your list of accomplishments are amazing. Before I let you go, though, we are going to do the rapid round around the acronym of SELF. The
Good.
S in self stands for sustainability. What's one daily habit you have that sustains you?
I walk 10,000 steps a day.
Good for you. That's awesome. The E in self stands for elevate. What's one thing you suggest we do to elevate our business?
Always try to meet people and hang around with people no more than you do.
The L stands for let's go. What's one action step you suggest that we take today?
Forgive yourself for being who you are. My favorite LinkedIn quote, which got so much response: forgive other people for being who they are, and forgive yourself for believing they were someone else.
Wow. Beautiful. The F in self stands for facing a challenge. With all that you've accomplished, what's a challenge you still face?
I still face so many challenges because I have an infinite aspiration of making a positive impact on as many lives as I can now and in the future, in the small time I have left to do it.
Well, I don't know about such a small time. I think you've still a long time. I told my kids I'm going to be around to 100, so get ready. So, Marshall, what's the best way to find out more about you, your work, your book?
Well, let's start with the book. My book, I just got $1 million advance for the book, so it should be in most bookstores. If it's not in the bookstores,
you're still okay.
Somebody's going to be upset because of $1 million advance. They better have it in a bookstore. So the book is called The Earned Life. Should be in all bookstores. And I know Barnes & Noble will have a bunch of them, and Amazon, of course, and all normal suspects for books. And then, so you can find that. My website is www.marshallgoldsmith.com. LinkedIn, I can't have any more connections because I'm out, but I can have followers. I got 1.3 something million followers. So I give away everything on LinkedIn, YouTube. I've got all kinds of stuff on YouTube. All of my material you may copy, share, download, duplicate, use in church, charity, business, use any way you want. If you want to modify it, it's okay. You want to put your name on it? I don't care. You do whatever you want. If my material helps you help anybody, all I can say to you is thank you.
Wow. That's beautiful. Of course, we'll make all those links available on our show notes as well at jeffreyshaw.com/podcast. And what a powerful conversation, Marshall. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I just can't wait to see what you're going to keep putting out. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Remember, you might be in business for yourself, but you are not in business by yourself. Be your best self, be proud, and keep changing the world.